All right, guys. So on this episode of everything that the left doesn't agree with is white supremacy or racism, we have this interesting article that is written by a woke academic in the Washington Post that essentially argues that freedom, okay, is a component of white supremacy, right? And he uses this argument to basically explain the freedom protests going on in Canada. Now, before I get into this article, right, this ridiculousness, I just want to say, I've come to realize that a lot of these people, man, they're simply just upset at European colonialism, right? I mean, it really comes down to, I'm upset that the white man almost conquered most of the world. Right? Let's forget about the fact that they've been numerous empires throughout history that have also tried to do the same thing. They just haven't been as successful. They're just simply mad. Fast forward to today that, this happened, okay? And that there were people that were displaced and that the conquerors, aka the Europeans in this case, they made their culture more dominant, okay? Because of it. Even though I would argue that almost any time another civilization tries to conquer another civilization, they also bring their culture as well too, right? They try to basically get rid of the old cultural practices of the conquered civilization. Like, for example, during the 7th and 8th century, when the Arabs invaded India, they brought Islam with them, right? And guess what? That was bloodshed. And to this day, the Hindus and the Muslims in India have been fighting, right? Because of that. And recently, particularly around World War II, Japan tried to have their own little imperialism thing, right? Trying to take over China, trying to take over Korea, trying to take over the Western Pacific and Southeast Asia, and they were somewhat successful for a little bit amount of time. Okay, at one point they had about 20% of the world's population under their control, right? But they ultimately ended up getting nuked, and that was the end of that. And that's not to say it's right or wrong. My argument is that these people act like what the Europeans did or what they tried to do is only simply just unique to white people. Only white people tried to do this type of stuff, and it's just like no, that's just not true. You're just upset because they are the ones most recently that has been the most successful at it, right? That's the honest to God truth. That is the honest to God truth. I know a lot of people are not gonna like hearing that, right? They're gonna call me this, they're gonna call me that, and I'm like, no, I'm simply just giving you the facts, right? That is what happened. But I would argue, despite some of the negative things when it comes to European colonialism, it's been an overall net positive, specifically in terms of having stable civilizations, okay, like America, okay, having the greatest country ever with a great quality of life for its citizens that includes people from all different cultures around the world, okay, that have enjoyed what ultimately was the result of European colonialism. It's been a net positive for the world, okay? I think that most people have a better quality of life because of the things that we went through than they would like to admit, right? The only reason this article exists is because of what we went through. Now, some people may find that controversial, okay? Some people go say, oh, I'm this, I'm that for saying that. I don't care because I think that is simply the truth. People love complaining about something that they are benefiting from. Okay, that's why all these people that complain about white supremacy and racism and the white man is evil and all this and that, they won't go back to Africa, right? Why don't you go to Africa and build that up, right? Build up Africa, okay? But they won't. They want to stay in America, right? And then complain about the land being stolen. And I'm like, why are you living on stolen land? Go back to a place where the land ain't stolen, right? But they won't. Right? For whatever reason. Okay, but they'll complain about it, right? And the fact that it happened, which really blows my mind. It really does. Okay, it's one thing to point out some of the negative things, okay, and some of the things we need to work on. It's another to just attempt to reverse what happened. But anyways, that's a whole nother video for another day. I'm getting off on a crazy diatribe here. Let's talk about this article, okay? That essentially is going to argue that the Ottawa Trucker Convoy is rooted in Canada's settler colonial history. Okay, let's read this. Okay, this woke academic is making an interesting argument here. In recent weeks, a convoy of truck drivers from across Canada began arriving en masse in Ottawa. The Freedom Convoy traveled to the Canadian capital to protest new vaccination requirements for essential workers across the U.S.-Canada land border. The convoy has amassed significant support. It's now removed GoFundMe, raised more than $10 million, and it's been celebrated by several center-right and right-wing public figures, including Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, and former President Donald Trump. Okay, so you guys should already better pick up that this article is not very credible, okay, because they're labeling Elon Musk and Joe Rogan as right-wing figures, right? I'm not sure if I would describe Elon Musk as right-wing, and I'm not sure if I would describe Joe Rogan, who openly supported Bernie Sanders, as right-wing either. Okay, I can say maybe they're moderate, maybe they're independent, but I wouldn't say they're right-wing. Okay, I think that this author here doesn't really understand the political spectrum, right? I think he's a far leftist who thinks that anybody that doesn't agree with him is on the right, right? That's what it sounds like to me. Okay, so off the bat, you already know this guy is lacking some key context. While the convoy's supporters have characterized the protest as a peaceful movement, uninformed by politics, race, religion, or any personal beliefs, many supporters have been associated with expressed racist, Islamophobic, and white supremacist views. When Tucker Carlson of Fox News interviewed Benjamin J. Deitcher, cementing his place among the movement's leaders, Deitcher rambled and likens Canada's western provinces to a third world country due presumably to immigration. Okay, do you know that for a fact, or is that just an assumption? Okay, I think he's making an assumption here. In Ottawa, various reports captured maskless protesters brandishing Confederate, Nazi, and Trump 2024 flags. Police have launched dozens of criminal investigations and made at least 20 arrests, including 4 carrying weapons in public space and assault. Okay, the Trump 2024 flag doesn't really mean anything. Okay, now the Confederate flag and the whole Nazi flag thing. Okay, here's the thing, right? There's no doubt in my mind that a very small minority of people were probably flying those flags, okay? Now, here's the thing. There's been some explanations for why the Nazi flag might be flown, right? Like some people are saying that, oh, the person was flying it as a show of what the country could become, okay? Which, in my opinion, I'm just like, if you don't actually really have those beliefs, then you probably shouldn't fly that flag, okay? And I don't know what the Confederate flag has to do with Canada, okay, or the freedom protest. So here's a word of advice, right? I would highly recommend people stop flying those flags. And the main reason is that when you fly those flags, it's an easy way for the left-wing media to paint a protest, right, that is overwhelmingly peaceful, that has people who don't believe in what those things represent. Okay, it is very easy for that whole group of people to be painted as, well, they're believers in this and that when people fly those flags. Okay, I'm all for people's freedom of speech, even though I don't support any of those things that the Confederate flag or the Nazi flag stands for. I'm just saying, if you don't want to be an easy target for the mainstream liberal media, okay, and you want people to be able to understand what you're doing and not paint your protest as hateful, don't fly those flags, okay? I'm just saying, let's just use some common sense here. Fly the Canadian flag, fly the American flag, fly flags that are non-controversial, even though, here's the thing, the mainstream liberal media, whatever flag you fly, they're going to make it out to be a symbol of hate, okay? Because now, apparently, the American flag is a symbol of hate, according to the woke revolutionaries. But I'm just saying, don't be an easy target for articles like this. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not trying to ban anybody from flying whatever flags they want to fly, right? That's not what I'm advocating for. I'm simply saying people need to understand the ramifications that come with flying certain flags in terms of how it makes everybody else look in a movement that doesn't have anything to do with those flags, okay? The convoy has surprised onlookers in the United States and Canada, both because of its explicitly racist and violent perspectives of some of the organizers and because of the actions seen to violate norms of Canadian politeness. But the convoy represents the extension of a strain of Canadian history that has long masked itself behind peacefulness or unity. Settler colonialism. This is what I was talking about at the beginning of what they're actually really pissed off at, right? This is the heart of what a lot of these woke revolutionaries are really mad about. It is not incidental that this latest expression of white supremacy is emerging amid a public health crisis. The history of Canadian settler colonialism and public health demonstrates how both overt white supremacist racist claims and seemingly more inert nationalistic claims about unity and freedom both enable and erase ongoing harm in marginalized communities. All right, so this article is going to go through a whole history lesson about how, you know, the European settlers came over here and basically dominated the indigenous folks, right? And basically tried to assimilate the indigenous people into Canadian society, which they are basically saying, well, you know, that is their notion of freedom, right? Adaptation to our culture, right? Doing what we want, right? In the, I guess, settlers' way, right? The white settlers' way, that is freedom, okay? And that freedom is at the expense of the indigenous people, right? The indigenous population. That's the argument here, okay? So let's read here. The primarily white supporters of the Freedom Convoy argue that pandemic mandates infringe upon their constitutional rights to freedom. The notion of freedom was historically and remains intertwined with whiteness, as historian Tyler Stovall has argued. The belief that one's entitlement to freedom is a key component of white supremacy. This explains why the Freedom Convoy members see themselves as entitled to freedom, no matter the public health consequences to those around them. The problem with this argument is essentially that the concept of freedom, specifically when it comes to bodily autonomy, okay, and what you want to do with your body, which is what this comes down to, oh, that's only specific to white people. All other people don't care about that. All other people, they just do what the government tells them to do, okay? That's essentially what it's arguing, that opposition to mandates is specifically a white trait, right? That's the problem. When we know objectively that's not true. Because if that was true, then are you saying that BLM is a white supremacist organization, right? I mean, well, in some aspects, I might, make that argument, but I'm just saying in general, right? BLM protested against vaccine mandates, okay? And a lot of those people were black, right? And they're supposed to be fighting for black liberation and black power. I'm just saying, it's funny how these articles weren't written when black people were actively protesting against this stuff, right? But these articles are being written and saying, no, opposition to mandates is white supremacy. When you have black people and organizations run by black people doing the same thing. But you didn't see these type of think pieces out here, okay? Again, I find it fascinating how this stuff works. And ain't it funny how they always assign the best traits to white people, right? Freedom is a white supremacist concept, right? Just like they say, personal responsibility and rational thinking is a form of whiteness, okay? As if not believing in freedom, not thinking rationally, and not taking personal responsibility, those are all non-white characteristics, right? The best characteristics, the woke revolutionaries always assigned to white people, okay? But these people claim to be fighting against, white supremacists, right? When at the end of the day, it seems to me that they're trying to make out white people to have superior traits and characteristics than other folks. That's what it seems like to me. To be quite honest with you, just like they try to make it seem like only Europeans, right? They're the only people that try to conquer other civilizations, right? And impose their culture and practices on other people. They're the only people that did it. And they've been doing that forever, okay? When Europe has not always been doing that well, okay? I think people need to understand that. They called it the Dark Ages for a reason. Canada's freedom of history then was founded in the unfreedom of indigenous people. This dynamic has been unnoticed and misconstrued by organizers, attendees, and supporters of the Freedom Convoy. On the GoFundMe, organizers claim we are a peaceful country that has helped protect nations across the globe from tyrannical governments who oppress their people, and now it seems to be happening here. We are doing this for our future generations and to regain our lives back. They are advancing a settler colonial genealogy that deploys the language of freedom and unity while engaging in actions that are harmful and violent. Okay. All right. So that is me going over this article. Okay. Now, this article comes out as one of these so-called white supremacists that is involved in this freedom protest happens to be an indigenous elder. You know, the same person that they claim was at the expense of these protests, right? As if, again, only white folks, okay, have a problem with this. When you have a woman who was literally in the middle of the protest, an indigenous elder, an older woman who was trampled by police, okay? Now, thank God she survived. But I found the irony here of this article making this argument that it's white supremacy because it comes at the expense of indigenous people, right? That's why these protests are white supremacy, and the idea of freedom is white supremacy. But you have indigenous people that are protesting, right? And in fact, you have indigenous people that are on the front lines that are getting hurt, right? Because they're a part of the protest. Now, that doesn't mean that all indigenous people support the Freedom Truckers, okay? It doesn't even mean most of them support the Freedom Truckers. I guess what it means is that it's just ridiculous, right, to insinuate that, you know, freedom or the concept of freedom is simply just a concept that's associated with whiteness, okay? And that nobody else values this. Nobody else values their bodily autonomy, okay? Or, you know, not being subject to government mandates, okay? Now, again, this woman, who was trampled, she has shoulder injuries, apparently. She's a full-blood Mohawk, okay, allegedly. Now, they tried to say that, you know, there was rumors that she died at first. Again, that was unconfirmed. You know, that was alleged. However, that's not true. Thank God that's not true. Okay, because it looked bad. Okay, when you look at the video of this woman being trampled, and I think somebody else probably got trampled too, it looked pretty bad. Okay, I mean, she could have easily been killed, but I'm glad that she wasn't. And again, you know, the police brutality crusaders, the people that claim they care about police brutality so much, they're silent about this, unsurprisingly. But like I said, I mean, I think it just represents, you know, that it's not just, you know, white people that's on the front lines of this, or just white people who, you know, are against the mandates. That's not it. Right, we've seen in America that there are a large group of people who are not white that are like, you know what, I'm not necessarily sure if I like these government mandates. Right, I value my freedom. Right, and I think it's just, again, disingenuous from the mainstream media to once again try to assign certain characteristics or values as whiteness. Okay, all the good stuff, right, is always associated with whiteness. Right, like freedom. Okay, personal responsibility. Okay. Rational thinking, like all that stuff is associated with whiteness. Once again, this is what they're doing. Okay, but again, these people are the ones that claim, right, to not be the racist. Okay, but every time you look, they're saying the most racist things. As if non-white people can't value freedom or bodily autonomy. It really blows my mind. It really does, right? And they will put their hands so far up their butts to pull out anything that they can to make the argument that what they don't agree with is white supremacy or whiteness or racist. Kind of like what this article is. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.